This following recording was found clutched in a dead hand of a sole survivor of a 37-man reconnaissance mission in Guadalcanal. The Marine Corps classified it for 83 years. And once you hear the violence that it contains and what gargantuan horrors it reveals are still with us, you'll know why, and you'll perhaps wish that it had remained a secret. Access to additional declassified files concerning these entities requires verification. Subscribe now before this transmission window closes. This is Staff Sergeant James Harlow, 1st Marine Division, August 25, 1942. If anyone finds this, then please get away as fast as you can. Send no more men to this area. I don't care if you're American or Japanese, you stay away. And if somehow this message does get home to our loved ones, you tell the families of my men, Rodriguez, Davies, and Weber, you tell them they're all gone, they're torn apart while I watched. But they did what they could. They fought till the end. You tell them that. Rodriguez gave me this photo just before he was crushed by that beast, of him and his family in Brooklyn. And those boys should know that their father did not desert, that he died fighting, that he died screaming, but fighting until the very end. And you tell his Maria that too. You tell all their families the truth. And they're coming through the trees now. Christ, it's like they make the trees move with them. And it was our radios that called them. All those transmissions, they weren't signals. They were feeding. This following journal that you're about to hear was recovered from a waterproof field case clutched to Staff Sergeant Harlow's chest when patrol boats found him delirious, floating in a coastal estuary 3 days after he and his platoon disappeared. Despite orders to burn this, Lieutenant Christopher Reynolds kept it hidden until his death in 2023, when his daughter found it among his effects and she shared it with the descendants of Harlow, Rodriguez, and the others. This is the field journal of Staff Sergeant James Harlow. If you're reading this, I'm already dead. For all I know, the official report will say Japanese ambush or tropical disease. Anything you read like that is all lies. You know what hunts us in these jungles of Guadalcanal, it's older than this war. Hell, it's older than all wars. I'm writing this for the families of my brothers. They deserve to know the truth. We hit the beaches at dawn today. No resistance, no bodies, and maybe this is going to be easier than I thought. Easier than what I was warned about anyway. Of course, what I was warned about was complete madness. Colonel Richards caught me alone before we shipped out, slipping me his flask before pressing a sealed envelope into my palm and giving me the most bizarre, unorthodox orders of my entire career. Keep a separate record, Harlow. Something happened to Johnson's recon team last month, something that the brass is trying to wipe away. Now, to hear that coming from a superior officer was insane, and that's how he looked too. His eyes were completely bloodshot and haunted. The official report says that they were gunned down, but the radio operator kept broadcasting for days after they were declared dead, talking about giant trees and our guys hurled through the air and the screaming. My kid brother was on that team. His hands were trembling as he took another pull. Document everything. The truth needs to survive even if you don't. The colonel's warning would have been enough to give me trouble falling asleep for days, but as I laid there, I couldn't help but feel like the jungle itself, it was pulsing somehow. It was in a way that seemed to match my heartbeat in particular. And I shook that off as crazy, but I can't shake this feeling that the vines on my tent are moving right now, and without wind. Lieutenant Weber's platoon pushes inland tomorrow. 37 men including me. Rodriguez slapped my back at dinner tonight, showing his creased family photo for the 100th time. My youngest starts kindergarten next month, he beamed. Maria looks tired in that picture. Beautiful, sure, but tired, the way mothers of small boys always do, especially when their father's headed off to war. Well, you'll be back to walk them to school, I promised. Richards assigned us a local guide, McConney, his eyes that reflected light like a cat's. Tonight, a sound like distant thunder woke me up, but the sky was completely clear. McConney, he was awake too, and he was carving something into a piece of driftwood. What's inland? I asked him. The deep places, he whispered, where the old ones sleep. Old ones? His knife paused. The radio men called them. Now they're waking up. The darkness feels crowded at night, and the air tastes like pennies. A couple guys came up to me today with these strange rashes. It's the same red spiral patterns on both of them. I said not to worry, but I gotta admit, that's strange. I mean, it's beyond weird that they're so similar on two different guys. And growing so fast, I swear, they're pulsing like heartbeats. 0200 hours, the jungle went dead silent. And then that deep, distant sound came again. It was like a whale's call, but it was deeper. And it was vibrating in my chest cavity. The men were clutching their rifles, their eyes were wide, none of us slept a wink. At dawn, we halted our progress when we saw these 3 treetops pointed down at us. And we stepped back to try to figure it out, only to find that these massive trees had been snapped like toothpicks, over 30 feet up. We could tell that it hadn't been caused by wind or explosives either. The breakpoints, they were crushed. They were splintered inward, and recently too. I saw the sap. It looked like it was dripping like blood. McConney took one look at this destruction and he backed away. They moved through the trees, he whispered, but the trees move with them. None of us had long to worry about any broken trees though, because just an hour later, Private Cooper, he disappeared. I mean, 1 minute he was right behind me and then the next he was gone. And there was no scream. I mean, there was no struggle. It was just footprints in the mud that seemed suddenly to stop, as if he'd been plucked upward into thin air. And we called out for him. I mean, we screamed for him. Nothing. We searched for hours. We were desperate for any sign, but we found only these strange circular depressions in the ground. It was like something was enormous had been growing there, and the jungle had already begun growing over them. These green tendrils were racing to cover the evidence. Rodriguez volunteered for extra watch tonight, sitting beside me with his rosary wrapped around his knuckles. My grandmother told these stories, he said quietly to me. Giants who come from the stars. They slept in the mountains of Puerto Rico, and sacrifice kept them sleeping. He didn't sleep tonight, again, and neither did I. The vines are growing faster than normal. I mean, we're traveling through them, we shouldn't be noticing growth at all. But I marked our path with machete cuts last night, and this morning, I thought the cuts were just grown over. That would be crazy enough, but Rodriguez pointed out that the machete cuts that I had made were now feet higher than they were just hours before. 2 more men gone today. Madison and Travers, they were just erased. Their packs were still hanging where they left them. It's impossible to describe this emotional weight that these disappearances are having on the men. Hell, on me too. The idea that it can happen just in an instant to any of us. It has us all on edge. Our radio operator picked up fragments of transmission tonight. It's a voice through the static saying the same phrase over and over. They're moving through the trees, but the trees move with them. And the timestamp was from 3 weeks ago. That's Johnson's missing team. And that was even before today's discovery, because today we found footprints. Bare feet, but impossibly large, the deepest one measuring 32 inches. Seeing that shook the men's psyche. Good old pragmatic Weber tried to explain it away, but his hand shook as he claimed that they were erosion patterns. Even he doesn't believe that. We found a Japanese soldier alone today. Uniform was in tatters, and his flesh had these spiral patterns cut into it. They were precise, and they were deliberate wounds that I realized they matched the mysterious rashes on my men. McConney translated his babbling. They were hungry. They were so hungry. After centuries of sleep, they hunger. I needed to know more than that, but the moment that we showed him the footprints, his eyes rolled back. 4 men couldn't hold him down. And he died right there, choking on his own fear. His heart was exploding in his chest. His last words, they moved through the trees, but the trees move with them. That's exactly what McConney said. That's exactly what came through on the radio. And then in the middle of the night, our radio started broadcasting all by itself. It gave that same deep vibrating call. None of us were sleeping. We all heard it together. And then, far worse, we heard the jungle itself answer back with identical blasts from all directions. Rodriguez leapt up screaming as he smashed it with the butt of his rifle. And now we have no way of communicating back home. It's too late. I think they already heard us. Today we found the bodies of 12 men, so meticulously dismembered that we couldn't discern if they were Japanese or American. Their organs had been removed with surgical precision and the blood was painted, spiraling patterns on the nearby trees. Patterns that reminded me too much of those rashes that were now growing on all of us. And among all this carnage was a stone club over a dozen feet long, and it was crusted with dried blood and what looked like brain matter. It took 3 of my men just to lift it, but something had wielded it one-handed to crush those soldiers to complete pulp. Makani refused my order to translate the symbols carved into its handle. Instead, he was devoting his time to carving us protective charms from bones and vines. You know, when we first met him, he was laughed at for his superstition, and now every single one of our men in the platoon grips one for dear life, even Weber. Rodriguez and I made a blood pact tonight. If one of us makes it, we tell all the families the truth, no matter what the official report says. And he showed me his boy's picture again, and he said, promise me that they'll know I didn't run. His eyes were wet. Promise that they'll know that their father fought. Of course I promised. Brothers, we keep our word. The jungle continues to close in, I see it. Vines reach for our ankles and grow over the boot prints moments after we pass. The trees bend toward us as we try and we fail to sleep. 3 more men vanished today, including our radio man, and we found Makani crying as he carved frantic symbols into his own arms now with a knife. The prison is broken, he kept saying. The old ones awake. Our men move in silent clusters now, they're jumping at shadows. Rodriguez walks beside me now praying in Spanish, and Weber himself even admits that the jungle seems to pull back from the sound of his prayers. But everything is growing so fast it's impossible to even tell. Weber found a functioning radio the Japanese left behind. It's a terrible idea to use it, but he's desperate to call for evacuation. And the moment he powered it up, we heard a voice. It was a Marine screaming about giants in the trees. That transmission was dated 3 days from now. We found this structure today. Massive stone walls and archways covered in pulsating vines that curled open as we approached it. They're pulling back like fingers opening up a door. And inside was this courtyard with stone floors. Weber ordered us to make camp here. To him, the walls must feel like protection. They don't to me. Makani refused to even enter this place. Prison, he kept saying, backing away. Prison for old ones, not for men. The stones have these carvings in them. They're elongated humanoid figures, and they're 3 times normal size, with these oversized jaws. And at their feet, the images of smaller humanoids in poses of worship or sacrifice, including some with their organs being removed. A drainage channel leads outside from beneath one carving depicting a blood sacrifice. Water flows in it now, but I shudder to think what once drained through that stone sewer. The inner walls have these metal fixtures. They're these massive broken chains made of some unknown alloy, anchored in stone. The metal, I swear, hums when we touch them. They're vibrating at the same frequency as that bellowing sound. And these huge tunnels continue into the rock beneath this place. But none of us had the courage today to head into the darkness beneath. These walls weren't to keep things out, Davies whispered to me. They were to keep something in. Rodriguez handed me his rosary tonight, pressing it into my palm, and his hands were trembling, but his voice was not. You always survive, Harlow. And when you make it out, you tell my Maria that I was thinking of her at the end, and you tell my boys that their father was not afraid. I promised him that we'd both make it home. God, those words tasted like ash. 3 more men went missing from inside our perimeter today. Their rifles were left behind. And on the stone floor, these massive footprints were leading to a large door that now stands partially open. And these footprints lead both ways. It means something went out and something came back in. Makani deserted today. His last words, "This door was never meant to open outward." Davies could translate some of the carvings. Here, the old ones sleep until the radio men call them forth again. Radio men. That phrase makes my skin crawl. Rodriguez found something today embedded in the wall. It's this small metal device. It's humming with energy, and when he touched it, the Japanese radio we have sparked to life on its own, and it was emitting this deep bellowing sound. And that's when I realized it's a perfect match for what we've been hearing in the jungle. The sound came from the radio, but also from the depths of the Lost Temple itself, I swear. It's an obscene sound that seemed to emanate from the core of the earth itself. These creatures, they're not responding to radio signals. I think they are the signals. The transmission goes both ways. Today, I now understand why Richards was so interested. His brother wasn't killed, he was taken. And something wearing his voice is still broadcasting. Tonight, they're here, in midnight silence and the bellowing not from the jungle but from inside the structure, proving we have nowhere to run. The stone walls are vibrating with it. It throbs inside our own heads. And then all at once, the trees outside bent inward, the canopies parting, and then we all saw them, stories tall with arms that hung to the moss like gorillas, heaving shoulder muscles and crowns of rock-like spikes ringing their dreadful faces. Their jawbones are hung low, they're halfway down their chests. With eyes that reflected our flashlights, they show intelligence behind them, and coupled with some kind of ancient hunger. And the first one we saw carried what was left of Private Miller, his intestines draped over its massive forearm. Weber screamed the order to open fire. We were opening up with everything, and our bullets tearing through them but causing them no pain at all. The giants merely bellowed, and the sound was answered from all directions. They came through the trees. There were 7 or 8, and there were more. They were moving too fast for their size, and their stone clubs and their obsidian spears were catching the moonlight, and we were screaming as our rifles were overheating. Jackson died first, crushed by a single blow that collapsed his chest cavity, and then Davies, and then Cooper. Rodriguez kept trying different radio frequencies, desperately calling for evacuation, and the radio signal suddenly amplified, broadcasting that bellowing at deafening volume. That's when I realized it was like ringing a dinner bell. Giants converged from every single direction. Rodriguez kept transmitting our coordinates, even as they broke through our line. "You tell him what's happening," he shouted at me. "You tell him what's here." The last thing I saw was this massive hand closing in around him, and the radio still clutched to his chest, and his eyes met mine as he threw the photo of his family at me and shouted, "You remember our promise," and the giant crushed him against his chest. The radio broadcast his scream and the crushing of his ribcage. It was a chorus of splintered bone and echoed from everywhere all at once. Weber finally ordered the retreat into the structure itself. 15 of us made it inside, sealing ourselves in that central chamber, and that was our fatal mistake. From those dark tunnels, more emerged, and they were larger than the ones outside. Their skin was pale from centuries without sunlight, and their eyes were milky, but they were tracking our movements perfectly. Rodriguez's radio was somehow still transmitting, and it was emitting that high-frequency signal that made these ancient giants recoil. So I scrambled for it. I was holding it before me like a crucifix as I backed towards the drainage channel in the floor. But it wasn't enough, they just kept on coming. And Weber, he died last. He was emptying his pistol into a giant's face before those massive hands tore his arms from their sockets, and I fell backward into the drainage channel, and I was tumbling into the darkness as cold water swept me away. I'm writing this now by the light of my last match. I'm wedged in a cave system with water all around me. Rodriguez's picture and rosary are still in my pocket, and his wife's eyes, they accuse me from the photograph. But I remember my promise. If anyone ever finds this journal, tell Rodriguez's family that he died a hero. Tell all their families the truth. You tell them what's really in these jungles. They move through the trees, but the trees move with them. And after centuries of sleep, they are still hungry. Staff Sergeant James Harlow was recovered by a coastal patrol 3 days after the disappearance of Lieutenant Weber's platoon. He was suffering from severe dehydration, multiple lacerations, and acute psychological trauma. Harlow's journal was recovered, along with a rosary and a water-damaged family photograph identified as belonging to PFC Antonio Rodriguez. An official investigation listed Lieutenant Weber's platoon as missing and presumed KIA, Japanese ambush. The stone structure was located, but no bodies were ever recovered. Naval artillery demolished that site on September 12, 1942, officially recorded as destruction of Japanese fortification. To account for their loss in battle, some soldiers were listed as deserting under fire, including PFC Rodriguez. Recovered radio equipment exhibited unexplained properties, including activation without power source and transmission on impossible frequencies. All of this equipment was transferred to Naval Intelligence and subsequently classified. Staff Sergeant Harlow was honorably discharged with a medical recommendation. He fulfilled his promise to PFC Rodriguez, visiting Maria Rodriguez and her 2 sons in Brooklyn, despite military orders forbidding contact with families. Harlow suffered from severe PTSD and auditory hallucinations until his death in 1997. According to VA hospitals, his final words were, "They're still broadcasting." This is a January 2025 audio recording, Military Declassification Project. This is Lieutenant Colonel Miguel Rodriguez, United States Marine Corps Historical Division, January 15th, 2024. I'm approximately 20 miles inland from Henderson Field, Guadalcanal, conducting the declassification assessment of what we now call the Harlow Incident. My grandfather, Antonio Rodriguez, was one of the Marines who disappeared with Weber's platoon, and for generations my family was told that he deserted under fire. The rosary he gave Harlow has been passed down to me, a legacy of unanswered questions. Yesterday, while setting up camp, we found footprints near the stream, over 30 inches long, perfectly preserved in mud that should have been washed away months ago. Last night, at exactly 0200 hours, our radios began broadcasting on their own, and that signal contained a voice. Analysis confirms it's my grandfather's voice, and he's saying the same words over and over again. They move through the trees, but the trees move with them. The timestamp encoded in the signal is from today. It's from 3 hours from now. Something's happening to this jungle. The trees around our camp have been bending throughout the night, and not from wind, but like they're being manipulated. Jenkins says it's a tropical storm approaching, but I'm telling you, this sky is clear. Wait, something's moving through the canopy to the north. Wait, this whole tree line is swaying towards us. Jenkins is trying to radio again for evacuation, but all frequencies are... Oh my god, it's exactly as Harlow described. 3 of them moving through the trees. The trees are helping them. The branches are bending, they're reaching toward us. It's looking right at us. Jenkins, shut off that radio. Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez and his 4-person research team were reported missing on January 17, 2024. The Solomon Islands government has officially attributed their disappearance to flash flooding. Their equipment was recovered, including this audio recording and a rosary identified as formerly belonging to PFC Antonio Rodriguez. The search has been officially suspended. This area of Guadalcanal has since been designated as restricted, citing environmental concerns and unexploded World War II ordnance. The recording recovered from Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez's team was merely the first in a series of declassified files revealing what lurks in remote war zones. Similar incidents have been documented across the Pacific Theater. Subscribe to ensure you receive future declassified reports as they become available. And if you have encountered similar phenomena in remote wilderness areas, please document your experience in the comments section below. All civilian reports will be cataloged and cross-referenced with existing military encounters. And I'll see you in the next video.